I'm now 61. I'm 5'11" and I weigh 110 kilos, which is about 242 pounds. That's too heavy for me. So it's time for a lifestyle change and move onto a diet which will help me gain a more sustainable and healthy weight. This is something that I actually did 8 years ago and was very successful on the keto diet back then. I lost 26 kilos in something like 6 months and maintained it for almost 3 years. But since then, things have slipped and I've started to gain weight again, which is not good at my age. I suffer with a bit of hip pain, which I think would be relieved by losing some weight. And my general energy levels are lower than I would like them to be. So this is me today with a tummy. I'm not pushing it out. I'm actually trying to suck it in there. You can see that it's not a pretty look. I won't show you my actual tummy, but there you are. That's what I'm dealing with. And if I can find it, this will be a photo of what I used to look like when I'd lost the 26 kilos and got down to 100. Now, I got on quite well with the keto diet. It's just a shame that over time, my weight has crept back up to 110 kilos, which I guess is not like the 126 kilos that I was when I started the diet 8 years ago. I then lost the 26 kilos, ended up at 100, and now over a 7-year period, I've managed to build it back up to 110 kilos. The keto diet suits me, and I think I'll go back to that. And back then, my weight was extreme at 126 kilos, and I needed a wake-up call, and I got that when I visited the doctor for hip pain back then. And he decided that he would do some tests on me and establish that I was borderline type 2 diabetic. He put me on the metformin, but said that that may be reversible if I could modify my lifestyle, which I did on the keto diet. Keto is very good for diabetics because it limits the amount of sugar that you intake, but replaces those with fat. So if you're considering doing the keto diet, then really you should be contacting your health professional for advice onto whether it's suitable for you. They have varying opinions onto whether the keto diet is a good thing or not, but they are your guardian, so you really should be advised by them. So back when I did it, the results were pretty staggering. I don't think that 26 kilos is to be sniffed at. And it got me down to 100. Because I'm a big framed person, I have a very, very large head. And the test for whether you're a big frame or not is whether your fingers will meet when you put them around your wrist. And mine don't. If they meet, then you're normal. And if you can cross them over, then obviously you're a slight build. But I'm a heavy build. Thanks, Mum. Doing that pushed back against Diabetes Diagnosis. And it meant that I could come off the metformin tablets and be okay. But there was a side effect, and it was a good one. I'd suffered with reflux or heartburn all of my life, and taking away wheat, particularly wheat, helped that. In fact, I've never suffered with heartburn since in the 8 years since I started the diet. So that's a very good result. And if you do have heartburn, I suggest that you maybe go down that road. It seems to be a family thing with me. My dad has suffered with it all of his life. He's now 92 and he still has it, but too late really for him to get his head around the idea of altering his diet, I suppose. But anyway, I think it would have helped him. So at almost 62, I don't have the luxury of delaying this any longer. So it is time to go back to the keto diet and do something about my situation. Things like we all eat, but shouldn't really, have crept back into my diet. I started eating bread again, first just one slice a day. And over time, that's increased to be a little bit more than that. Also some pastries occasionally, cakes occasionally. And I have a liking for red wine. It is dry red wine that I like to drink, and that's not too bad in a keto diet, but it needs to be in moderation, and I couldn't honestly say it was in moderation. So that will have to go for now at least. So there are changes to make if you're considering doing the keto diet. What you're trying to avoid are carbohydrates, so you need to avoid wheat, and then also some root veggies are not good for you. It should be if they have a lot of carbohydrate in them. I'll put a list of what's frowned upon in a keto diet, and maybe you'll understand how it works. So here's the list of foods which you should avoid. It's not an exhaustive list, but it covers most things. You can see the sugars mentioned quite highly in this that really needs to be avoided. Fruits such as bananas, apples, grapes, mangoes, pears, etc. have a high sugar content. And root vegetables and tubers, they've got a lot of carbohydrate, which your body turns into sugar, so we don't want that. Likewise, beans and lentils and chickpeas, kidney beans. Can't have ketchup either. I wasn't sure about that one. Sweet wine's no good. Dry wine's okay in moderation. And here's the recommended foods. Mostly high proteins. You need to keep your protein level up in keto, otherwise it will result in muscle loss. Eggs are your friend in keto diet. You need low-carb veggies, leafy vegetables as the rule generally. But you can have mushrooms and bell peppers and that kind of thing. Cheese is also another staple, and heavy cream. And also walnuts and pecan nuts, almonds, etc. Pumpkin seeds. They're quite good. I have those. A few fruits. And then beverages. I have coffee with almond milk and tea with almond milk. I quite like that. But the principle of the keto diet is that you're replacing carbohydrate as your energy source with fat as your energy source. And if you can keep your calories lower than your maintenance weight, then you will lose weight on the keto diet. Your maintenance weight varies given on the body type and the individual. They say that for a man to maintain his weight, he needs about 2,000 calories a day. I think that's pretty high. But yeah, if you can keep it under that, then you should lose weight. So what stops people from trying this? Secondly, there are changes to make. It's really difficult for people to get their head around the idea that they can't eat bread or cakes or pastry. But there are replacements for those. Just have to focus on something else. For example, my breakfast usually consisted of a poached egg on toast. Now I've actually gone for a poached egg on flat mushroom, which is actually quite flavoursome. I've been enjoying that. So primarily you need to avoid wheat, which is obviously bread and pasta and pastries. Also, you need to avoid the carbohydrates in root vegetables, the likes of potatoes and carrots. There are plenty of leafy vegetables which you can replace those with, and they are lower in carbohydrate. So it's really quite hard to get your head around, but there are benefits. Because you're looking for fats and not carbohydrate, it means you can have meals like bacon and eggs. You could have that every day, but obviously it's quite high in cholesterol, saturated fat, so it might depend on your cholesterol levels. Don't have that every day. What you're trying to do is stop your body from relying on the sugars from carbohydrate and actually eat the fat in your body. So if you can keep your calories down below your maintenance level, which varies for males and females and body size, if you can keep it below your maintenance level, then you will lose weight on the keto diet. It's important to track your progress when on the diet, and I use an app to do that. I'm a bit of a techie person, and I like apps and data, so it's sort of an encouragement for me to actually do it. I've designed a little app which I'm using personally, which I suppose I could make publicly available, but it suits me. What it has is a list of foods that I eat regularly, or some I don't eat regularly, and it details the carbs, calories, fiber, and protein, and then we'll chart that in a day. So you say, I've had, for example, 110 grams of yogurt, and it'll give you the carbs and calories for that amount. Likewise, if you have 100 grams of bacon, it will do the same. And that totals that up to tell you how many carbs you've ate in the day. The ideal limit is 20 grams of carbohydrate a day, but if you keep it under 50, you should remain in ketosis. 20 is the ideal. Your maintenance calorie intake for the day is dependent on male and females and size of body, so you need to look that up. Which brings me to AI. AI is marvelous helping with the keto diet. It's not something that was available when I did it all of those years ago. But you can take, for example, a picture of a meal, tell it the size of the plate. It'll then scan that meal, tell you whether it believes that it fits in well or not into a keto diet, and give you an approximate calorie and carbohydrate rating for that given plate of food. That really does work quite well. I've tested it and it's not far off. So that's useful. Also, you can ask it, is a specific food, say mayonnaise, for example, is mayonnaise suitable in a keto diet? And it will tell you whether it's a good food to have or not. So I'll just give a very brief overview of the little app that I created. So when you enter the homepage, you can see your net carbs, your protein today, and your calorie today. And then we scroll down, and this is where you enter in your food and the weight of the food that you've eaten. And below that there's a little graph which just shows your calories and your carb intake for the day, and also gives you those lines. This app actually scales quite well when you turn it into landscape mode. It fills the screen up. I didn't do it in this little demo. And there's all the foods that I've eaten over the past few days. Go to the foods database. This is where you can enter in the new food. That screen's not quite right. I'll have to change that. And these are the list of foods below. This is all of the database that are the foods that I've entered in. And back to the top, and then we go to meals, and this is where you can create a meal. So if you know the ingredients of an individual meal, like bacon, egg and mushrooms there, whoops, that was quick, and tomatoes, that shows you the carbohydrate that was in that particular meal. And then you can manage your weight. You can put in your current weight by day and have a target weight. So set your goal, and then that's a little graph, and that's over the past few days. I've actually recorded this after I've been on the diet a week, so you can see my progress there. And there's all the instructions. So that's it really. The app also works in a web browser, so it's much bigger. You can see what you're doing much easier on a larger screen. So I'll leave it there for now. I'm at the beginning of my journey with this, and I hope to give you updates. This is obviously a very personal journey, so it's not your type of thing, don't bother. But please like and subscribe if you'd like to follow along. Thank you for your time.